A chilling touch, the forest demon. When Rat was a child, she lived with her family in the countryside before moving to the city to pursue higher education. Her childhood home was a single-story house divided into 4 sections. A common room for various household activities, 2 bedrooms and a kitchen that extended to the outside. She lived with her father, mother, and grandmother. She had 2 siblings, Nob, her tall, much bigger older brother, and Wayu, her younger sister who had just started 2nd grade. Their family was financially stable. All 3 children attended the same school. Every day they walked to school on their own, a journey that covered nearly 2 kilometers round trip. The path was red dirt with trees providing shade along the way. It was truly a peaceful rural setting. When Rat returned from school, she had daily responsibilities. She and her younger sister would help their grandmother pick vegetables from the garden behind the house to prepare dinner. Rat had an additional task, fetching water from the village well, also known as the water pond. She drew water regularly using a cart and 3 basins. She performed this chore after gathering vegetables because upon arrival she couldn't just draw water immediately. Every villager had to stand in line, forming a long queue. Being a child, Rat naturally wanted to run and play like other children. But she couldn't. She had to work at home to help ease her parents' burden. She could only stand and watch as other children played joyfully. Her older brother would go out to tend the buffaloes with their father, who was a buffalo trader. When the season came, her father would take the buffaloes to market, disappearing for 3 or 4 days before returning. But whenever her father came back, he always brought new household items with him. Everything proceeded in this routine manner until one day when the 3 siblings were walking home from school as usual. Upon reaching home, their grandmother sent Rat and Wayu to gather chili peppers from Grandma Thong's house nearby. But Grandma Thong's plants were still young and tender, so they couldn't pick any. They returned and reported this to their grandmother, who then sent them to look around the temple area, which was quite far from their house. On that day, Rat and her sister had their first opportunity to go out and play together. She didn't have to fetch water that day and had time to play like other village children. The 2 sisters played joyfully with other children in the temple courtyard. They became so engrossed in their games that time slipped away, and it was almost 4 in the afternoon. By the time they would run home, it would already be dark. Rat panicked, fearing her grandmother's scolding for not gathering the peppers and her father's punishment for returning after dark. She and her sister decided to take a shortcut home. This shortcut, however, required passing behind the cemetery, then cutting through to 2 or 3 houses before reaching the road they usually took. Rat hesitated briefly before making her decision. She and Wayu walked past the cemetery. The air around the cemetery was damp and cool, giving her goosebumps. She felt a peculiar sense of constriction in her chest. The adjacent forest made things even more eerie. Though they were walking at a considerable distance from it, Rat still felt as if someone was watching them. Wayu clung to Rat's arm, and the sisters walked pressed so tightly together they were almost like Siamese twins. When they had made it past the cemetery, they saw 3 dilapidated tall wooden stilt houses ahead. These houses were built close together, spaced as if they were related dwellings. But they didn't appear to have been inhabited for a very long time. Rat felt an immediate chill when she looked up at the first house. She had the distinct feeling that someone was staring at her and her sister. When Wayu clutched her arm tightly, the hair on Rat's arm stood straight up as if sensing something. The atmosphere around these 3 houses was visibly frightening, especially with the sun about to set. Rat walked while holding her breath intermittently. But after they had walked a short distance, Wayo tugged at Rat's arm as if wanting her to stop. Wayo was staring at something at one of the houses, the second one they were about to pass. Rat asked Wayo what was wrong, but instead of answering, Wayo pointed to what she was looking at. When Rat followed her sister's gesture, she saw freshly green pepper plants growing at the fence of that house. The two stood still for a moment before Rat decided to go pick the peppers immediately. But Wayo didn't follow her and seemed to be staring at something real. Before Rat had gathered even a handful of peppers, Wayo suddenly spoke up. "Sister, did the house owner give us permission? Why is she looking at us like that?" The moment Rat heard this, the hair on her arm stood on end. She jumped back instinctively, almost losing her footing, and turned to look at her sister with frightened eyes. She asked Wayo with a trembling voice what she saw. Wayo pointed toward the pepper bush where Rat had just been picking. "I don't know who she is, sister. She's standing by that pepper bush. Her hair reaches the ground and she keeps staring at us. I think she must be the house owner." Rat looked in the direction her sister pointed but saw nothing except the pepper bush. She looked at her sister's face to make sure she wasn't lying and saw that Wayo's eyes were still fixed on whatever she was describing. Terrified beyond measure, Rat grabbed her sister's hand and they ran for their lives. When they arrived home, Rat was summoned by her father. She was punished with 3 spanks for playing until dark and not returning home on time. Her punishment left red welts, while her younger sister wasn't punished because she was still too young. After dinner, despite the pain from her wounds, Rat fell asleep from exhaustion. In her bedroom, she slept with her grandmother and Nob, the 3 of them together. On the other side was the room where her father, mother, and little Wayo slept, separated by wooden planks. In the middle of the night, Rat jolted awake because of clattering sounds, as if someone was moving things around in the kitchen. She sat listening to the noise for a moment before getting up to peek through the partially open door. She tried to move as silently as possible, peering through the small gap of the door she had cracked open. Moonlight streamed in, providing just enough illumination to make out shadowy forms. She could see what looked like the silhouette of a person in the kitchen area, about to walk out. Rat was afraid to follow, so she continued to spy from her position. After a while, she noticed long hair resembling her sister's and decided to follow the shadow outside. As she got closer, she could clearly see it was Wayo standing with her back to Rat. Rat called out Wayo's name to get her attention, but Wayo didn't respond, causing Rat to pause. She stopped and observed her sister's odd walking pattern. One foot taking small steps, the other making larger ones in a rhythmic motion. Wayo didn't normally walk this way. Rat approached slowly but continued calling Wayo's name. She reached out to grasp her sister's shoulder and shook it gently to bring her to her senses. This startled Wayo, who turned to face Rat standing behind her. Wayo looked at Rat before asking what she was doing outside at this hour. Rat stared at her sister in bewilderment. She figured Wayo must have been sleepwalking and led her back into the house. The next morning, which was a Saturday with no school, Rat and her sister went to fetch water from the village well as usual. As they walked through the village, dogs barked at them all the way. When they reached the well, Rat and her sister queued as normal. She saw her sister watching other children playing joyfully. Out of pity, Rat told Wayo she could go play with the other children first if she wanted to. But Wayu stood motionless as if she hadn't heard Rat's offer. They waited in line for a long time until it was their turn. Rat told Wayu, who was standing behind her, to hand over a basin, but there was no response. When she turned around, she discovered Wayu had moved away from the queue and was talking to a woman who owned a garden house by the water. Rat had just noticed how talkative Wayu was when she saw the woman laughing. She didn't pay much attention and quickly drew water from the well because other villagers were waiting their turn. After finishing, she walked over to her sister and asked what she had been discussing with the woman. Wayu turned to face Rat, staring with emotionless eyes, and responded curtly, "None of your business." Rat was shocked. She never expected her sister to speak to her that way. Then Wayu walked away. After the morning incident, Rat didn't see Wayu again for a while, not knowing where her sister had gone. But by evening she saw Wayu sitting at the dinner table with their parents. Rat noticed something else strange about her sister. Usually Wayu never sat with her knees folded to one side while eating. It wasn't appropriate. She was sitting as if she were an adult woman. This caused their father and mother to scold Wayu, asking who had taught her to sit like that. But Wayu ignored them, continuing to eat without paying attention. Everyone in the house found this strange. Wayu was punished after dinner. Rat and Nob watched from a distance, witnessing everything with their own eyes. Their father used a rattan cane to strike Wayu's back several times. But strangely, Wayu didn't cry, didn't move away or show any signs of pain whatsoever. After the punishment, Wayu retreated to her room. Rat and Nob discussed this bizarre behavior, their suspicion making them inevitably wary of their own sister. Rat helped her grandmother pound betel nut in the yard, while Nob helped their father pack things into a bag because tomorrow their father would go to market to sell buffaloes. After 9 o'clock, everyone in the house went to bed. But after closing the door and lying down for a while, footsteps could be heard as if someone was walking past the room. The heavy footfalls made Rat, who was still awake unlike the others, sit up and watch the shadow passing by. She felt afraid and didn't dare to follow, so she nudged her brother Nob, who was sleeping beside her, to wake up and accompany her. Nob, who's walking outside? Why are you waking me? I didn't hear anything. Should we go check? It might be Wayu. Last night I saw her sleepwalking outside too. At that point, Rat decided to slowly follow the shadow that had passed by the front of the room, with her older brother walking closely behind her. But when the shadow disappeared around the corner of the doorway, neither Rat nor Nob could see anyone or anything else except the darkness of the night. Almost a week passed and everything in the house seemed normal, except for Wayu alone. She had become withdrawn and quiet, didn't go out to play, didn't talk to anyone, and barely ate anything, causing her to become very thin. That morning, as Rat was steaming rice, she saw villagers running to fetch her father at the front of the house. Her father's face showed alarm before he quickly grabbed a knife and tucked it into his waistband. Rat herself didn't know what had happened. By late afternoon, her father returned home and spoke with her mother. Rat happened to be sitting nearby and overheard what her father told her mother. "Listen, Grandma Nang, the garden house owner by the water, she's dead, you know." Her mother's eyes widened in shock, but that wasn't as shocking and frightening as what her father was about to say next. He told her mother that Grandma Nang's body had bruises all over, as if someone had squeezed her body tightly. But there were no other strange marks or signs of struggle. The village headman said she had died in her sleep, but many suspected Grandma Nang had been consumed by a pob. a malevolent spirit because she had died unnaturally. Being still a child, when Rat heard this, she became terrified, dwelling on it constantly. She even needed Nob to accompany her to the bathroom. But a few days after Grandma Nang's death, her father had to leave again to sell buffaloes at the market. This left only 5 people at home. That night after dinner, Wayu asked to go to bed before anyone else. Rat was worried about her sister's distant behavior, so unlike her normal self. Out of concern, she invited Nob to talk and discuss the problem. After talking for quite a while, their grandmother came in and asked Rat and Nob to gather herbs she had planted and bring them into the house. Both children complied. When grandmother received the herbs, she stored them in a tubular container before returning to sit and chat with their mother in the central courtyard of the house. As Rat and Nob were about to go to bed, they heard what sounded like someone running outside. Their mother shouted loudly, calling for help. Rat and Nob were startled and quickly got up to see. She stood hidden behind the door with her brother standing next to her. They saw their mother struggling to hold onto Wayu's arm while speaking with a trembling voice to whoever was trying to pull her away. But Wayu didn't respond at all. She merely swayed back and forth, jumping up and down like a wild monkey, repeatedly shaking her arm and attempting to bite their mother's arm before successfully breaking free. Nob rushed to restrain Wayu, but despite being much larger and stronger than his sister, who was only in 2nd grade, he was easily pushed down by her. Rat could only watch. She didn't dare intervene. When Wayu stared at her, it sent chills down her spine. Wayu no longer seemed like Wayu. The scene before them was chaotic. Everyone there helped to hold Wayu's body. She continued trying to jump around. Finally, Wayu was captured and tied to the central pillar of the house. She moaned and writhed, trying to escape. Their mother ordered Nob to quickly fetch the village elders. Their grandmother, who had witnessed everything but couldn't help because of her advanced age, stood still, watching what was unfolding. Wayu now had eyes full of hatred and anger. She spoke in a voice that couldn't possibly be her own. "Let me go, you bastards, I'm hungry. If I break free, I'll hunt and devour every one of you." Rat saw her mother trembling all over. Their grandmother seemed to have remembered something. She rushed to get her basket before taking out a Freya fire herb and holding it in her hand. When Wayu saw the herb in grandmother's hand, she thrashed about violently, as if she disliked what grandmother was holding. "Ha! You don't like it, do you? I knew it. A Pob is possessing my granddaughter. Where did you come from, evil spirit?" Mother asked grandmother, who nodded before dividing the herb and giving some to hold. Wayu struggled even more furiously than before until it was visible that her arms were beginning to redden, with blood seeping from those marks. She made a disgusted face, clearly displeased seeing the herb in grandmother's and mother's hands. Soon about 4 village elders arrived. They asked grandmother about what had happened. She answered firmly, "A Pob has possessed my granddaughter. Can you handle it?" The village elders exchanged glances before nodding. They surrounded Wayu, who continued to struggle, so they helped secure her to the pillar, fearing she might break free. Though just a small child, she made them visibly afraid. Grandmother clutched the herb tightly in her hand, while mother's eyes began to well with tears. After some time, Nob returned with a monk. The monk observed for a moment before speaking. "Who are you? Where have you come from? And why have you possessed this young girl?" But Wayu didn't answer. She merely smiled wickedly. her gaze fixed unwaveringly on the monk. "Leave her alone. Create no more karma." With that, the monk called for someone holding a bowl of holy water to come forward, then sprinkled the water over Wayao while reciting incantations. When Wayao was splashed with the holy water, she wailed as if being burned by fire. Suddenly her mouth opened wide and a dark shadow leaped out of her body. Everyone was shocked at what they witnessed. Wayu collapsed unconscious to the floor. Meanwhile, that dark shadow continued to jump and dance across the central courtyard. The monk spoke as if reciting something, then ordered the entity to leave. The dark shadow vanished instantly. Mother and grandmother rushed to check on their daughter and granddaughter out of concern. The monk suggested taking Wayu to the temple first. That night, Rat's family had to sleep at the temple with 3 or 4 villagers keeping watch. Throughout the night, the voice of that evil spirit echoed around the temple walls. By dawn, when Wayao regained consciousness, they performed a large wrist-tying ceremony to call back her spirit. Last night's events had become so notorious that villagers flocked to see her at the temple. She now looked exhausted and extremely thin, barely able to speak except for blinking her eyes rapidly. She looked at Rat before struggling to say, "That woman we saw by the pepper tree. She followed us home." Wayu managed only these words before she exhaled her final breath and grew still. Everyone there was devastated by what had happened. Rat was heartbroken. She knew exactly what her sister meant. Everyone returned home to prepare for the funeral. Rat told her mother about what had happened previously. Not long after, when her father returned home and learned the news, he became furious and deeply saddened. He mobilized many villagers to go to that abandoned house. Upon arrival, her father, wielding a large machete, furiously hacked at the pepper plant, both cutting and uprooting it until the plant lay flat on the ground. Then the villagers helped dig up its roots, burning and destroying them until nothing remained. A chilling touch, haunting experience at the Pattaya Reservoir. This is a true story that happened to a young woman who experienced it firsthand. Although it occurred about 5 or 6 years ago. This incident took place when I was still young. You could say I was a Smiy, the term for rebellious teens. I'm sure many of you have gone through that phase. I was a Pattaya kid hanging out with a group of older friends who were in their 20s or 30s. They often rode their motorcycles to different places at night to drink and party like typical teenagers. I didn't drink. I just tagged along. The place I'm about to describe is a reservoir near Pattaya, though not within the city limits, slightly outside Pattaya proper. It's a fairly large reservoir that I'd been visiting since I was very young. As a child, I would come here to play in the water with my family. When I became a teenager, I started coming with groups of other young people instead. That night, it was probably past midnight. Our group included 3 or 4 older guys, about 2 older women, and me with my close female friend named Nim. We all rode motorcycles to the reservoir. I rode on X motorcycle with my friend. 3 of us squeezed onto one bike while the others paired up. Before reaching our destination, the older kids stopped at a 7-Eleven near the reservoir to buy drinks, liquor, and ice as usual. When we reached the entrance, I felt scared because it was extremely dark inside. I'd also heard rumors about mysterious occurrences there. We continued riding along a narrow 2-lane road that stretched to the edge of the reservoir. The reservoir was on our left and forest on our right. I don't remember if there were streetlights, but if I'm not mistaken, there weren't any. I recall it being dark, with only the headlights from our motorcycles providing illumination. At the reservoir, there were occasionally other teenagers hanging out at night, but not many. Maybe one or two groups. When we arrived, another group that had been there before us was just leaving. We sat at a spot by the road, at what might be called a bridge, though it wasn't a bridge crossing a river. It was a place where you could sit or stand to feel the breeze. Upon arrival, the older kids immediately claimed the spot, setting out their drinks, ice, and glasses before sitting in a circle. I sat nearby while they drank and chatted. After a while, Eek, who was sensitive to the supernatural, sensed something. He felt strange and mentioned he'd been feeling off since we arrived. But we didn't think much of it, assuming he was just being paranoid. As we sat there, Nim received a phone call. Since the older kids were talking loudly and playing music, she walked away along the dark road to take her call. She disappeared into the darkness. I looked in the direction she'd gone but couldn't see her at all. I don't know how she dared to walk alone like that. I was too scared to follow her. At that moment, everyone was having a great time, talking, laughing loudly, enjoying themselves as if unafraid of the darkness and the atmosphere. About an hour passed and the older kids were still socializing while I just sat there. Then I began to notice that Ek had grown unusually quiet. Earlier he'd been cheerful, but now he was suddenly silent. I remembered what he'd said earlier about feeling strange, so I asked if anything was wrong. Ek told me he felt like someone was watching him. His voice trembled, his body tensed as if frightened by something. This made me afraid too. When everyone heard what Ek said, they grew quiet, and it seemed like they were starting to get scared, though they continued drinking. After a while, Ek stood up and leaned against the railing, his eyes scanning the surroundings. His body was rigid and shaking. Suddenly he exclaimed loudly, "Hey!" and jerked backward from the railing. Everyone jumped, startled by his reaction. In the excitement, we thought Ek must have seen something, but he wouldn't say what. He remained silent, then simply said, "Let's go back." By then, everyone began to understand. Ek often encountered supernatural things. After that, everyone hurriedly packed up their belongings in fear. I searched for Nim, who had gone to talk on the phone and still hadn't returned. I thought maybe she was arguing with her boyfriend, which would explain her prolonged absence. She'd been gone for an hour, lost in the darkness. I turned to ask if anyone had seen Nim or if she'd returned, but everyone said they hadn't seen her. So I called out her name into the dark path she'd taken, not daring to walk there myself. After calling for a while, she suddenly emerged from the darkness, but her demeanor seemed different. She walked slowly, expressionless, her face pale as if she might cry. I asked her why she had stayed in such darkness for so long. Nim told me that while she was walking and talking on the phone, she came across an old man fishing in the dark. Curious about why he would be fishing in such darkness, she approached to ask him. When Nim first saw the old man, he appeared as a dark shadow. A small, hunched old man sitting with a fishing rod and a small bucket containing fish beside him. The old man spoke with Nim, saying he was fishing. After they exchanged just 2 or 3 sentences, Nim heard us shouting her name. She turned to look back toward where we were, where there was some light and she could see us, though we couldn't see her. When she turned back to the old man, he had vanished, along with his bucket and fishing rod. He had disappeared incredibly quickly in just a few seconds. After Nim finished her story, I related it to the older kids. They all became frightened and hurriedly packed up to leave. At that moment, as we all looked around, we saw only water, dark forest, and cool breezes. The atmosphere was spine-chilling and intensely eerie. Looking in any direction, our imaginations ran wild. Any dark shape became a ghost in our minds. So we rode back on our motorcycles. I sat behind Ek with Nim on the last bike in our group. I sat in the middle with Nim behind me. As we were riding away, not far from where we'd been sitting, Ek suddenly startled and shook his leg, wobbling on the bike while accelerating. I was puzzled and asked what was wrong, but Ek didn't answer. About 5 minutes later, out of curiosity, I asked again if anything was wrong. Ek then told me that he had felt someone grab his leg. When he looked down, he saw a woman holding onto his leg. She was looking up at him, but her body from the chest down was dragging along the road, flowing behind the motorcycle as Ek rode. Ek was so startled that he shook his leg. When he looked again, the woman had vanished. But when Ek glanced at his side mirrors, he saw a child's legs dangling around his neck. Fortunately, Ek maintained his composure. Otherwise, we would surely have crashed. When we heard this, we were terrified, almost to tears. After we had safely exited the reservoir area, Ek revealed more. Earlier, when he felt someone watching him and stood up to check the railing, looking around for the source of that gaze, he had looked down and seen human heads without bodies, many heads piled on the rocks below. All those heads were staring at Ek with the same gaze, eyes wide open, looking vengeful and terrifying, as if filled with hatred. That's why Ek had been so startled, shouting and jerking backward. Hearing this, we were completely spooked. Luckily, we hadn't seen it ourselves. Afterward, the older kids split up to go home or continue drinking elsewhere. I'm not sure which, but they were probably still in shock. As for me, Ek and Nim, we didn't go home yet. Instead, we decided to visit another reservoir near Pattaya. Looking back, I don't know what we were thinking, going just the three of us. The journey there was terrifying and eerie. Flickering lights, forests on both sides of the road. As we neared the reservoir, there were no lights at all along the way, making it extremely dark. As Ek was riding along, Nim suddenly leaned against my back, lowered her head and said, "Let's go back. Turn around now." Surprised, I asked Nim what was wrong, but she wouldn't answer, insisting only on going back, her voice sounding like she might cry. Seeing that something was amiss, Ek turned the bike around. After riding a short distance from where we turned back, Nim spoke with a trembling voice, saying she had seen the same old man from the reservoir standing by the road in the darkness. He was holding the same small bucket, smiling at Nim and beckoning her with his hand. Nim had lowered her head, afraid to look, and immediately asked to turn back because she was too scared to continue, fearing another encounter. So we decided to head home. Ek rode us back, and the atmosphere along the entire route was terrifying. He rode steadily until we passed an abandoned, unfinished housing development. I wondered why it had been abandoned before completion and commented on it as we passed the entrance. Ek looked at me and said, "Hey, don't mention it." I didn't understand why I shouldn't talk about it. It was just a housing development. But since Ek didn't want me to speak about it, I remained silent. Shortly after passing that development, Ek suddenly turned to look at my face, then quickly turned back. I didn't pay attention to this, being too preoccupied with the eerie surroundings we were passing. When we finally entered a lane with houses passing cars and lights, Ek told me that when I had commented on the abandoned housing development, and we had ridden just a little further, he had checked his side mirror and seen a long-haired woman sitting in my place. When he turned to look directly, he saw a long-haired woman with a white face, red lips, and bulging eyes staring at him. Ek quickly turned away, but when he checked the mirror again, he saw me there as usual. That night was truly haunting for us all. A chilling touch. The mystical legends of Tam Luang, Lady Mountain, and the Guardian Naga. Tam Luang Cave is located in Pongfa Sub-District, Mae Sai District, Chiang Rai Province within the Doi Nang Nan National Forest Reserve. It sits at 453 meters above sea level and covers approximately 5,000 roi of land. The Royal Forest Department established it as a forest park on October 1, 1986, with an area encompassing the peak of Doi Nang Nan within the National Forest Reserve. There are 2 service areas for tourists: the Tam Luang Forest Park area covering 12 Rai and Ban Nam Jam, Pongpa Sub-District, Mae Sai District, which houses the administrative office, and the Kun Nam Nang Nan area covering 8 Rai and Ban Jong, Pongpa Sub-District, Mae Sai District. The Tam Luang Forest Park borders Doi Jong and Nam Jong Stream to the north, Doi Pu Thao and Nam Kong Stream to the south, the flatlands adjacent to the mountains to the east, and the large mountain range extending from the Myanmar border to the west. Tam Luang Cave is vast and deep. According to Park Authority information, the cave extends approximately 10 kilometers. The physical characteristics of Tam Luang include a high cave entrance and winding, difficult paths inside. Some sections are easy to traverse while others are challenging with low ceilings in places. The first chamber opens wide with the ground level lower than the cave entrance due to the water channel flowing out from the cave. A water channel runs between the first chamber, and to the right of the channel is elevated ground with collapsed pits forming the second chamber beyond the first. There are also signs of rock collapse on the left side. Upon descending the stairs from the cave entrance, there is a short dirt path followed by 5 to 6 concrete steps elevating the floor toward the length of the cave. The rainy season is extremely dangerous, so tourists visit Tam Luang only from November to April. During the rainy season, officials close the cave to visitors because it floods inside, particularly in the water channel of the first chamber. Inside the cave, traces of high water levels are visible along with cracks in the cave walls. Previous explorations ended at a secret chamber, as proceeding to other chambers beyond is exceedingly difficult. Normally, few people venture deep inside because it appears mysterious and frightening. Local villagers are well aware of the supernatural forces and mysteries within the cave, so no one dares to enter even during daylight. The cave has many legends surrounding its mysteries, including those of the Lady of Doi Nang Nan, the Sleeping Lady Mountain, and the Naga Lord who guards this cave. According to belief, to enter the cave, one must request permission from its guardian and enter with respect. Loud noises, inappropriate actions, or disrespectful speech are forbidden, or else unexpected mysterious events might occur. This cave differs from all others because when looking inside, it seems as if everything has life and is watching every step of those who enter. Inside the cave are large limestone formations, beautiful reflective rock flakes, stalactites, stalagmites, water basins, and stunning passageways. Although many tourists come to admire its beauty, no one has dared to develop it into a serious tourist attraction, despite being within the Khun Nam Nong Non Park. This contrasts with other nearby caves that receive excellent care. This cave still awaits thorough exploration by tourists, as explorers often turn back before reaching their destination due to the difficult obstacles within. There are also 3 smaller caves in the same area. In 2534, 1991, 2 French tourists visited Tam Luang. When they didn't emerge after a long time, authorities were notified. A search party was mobilized, and after more than 3 days, they successfully found both tourists in extremely exhausted conditions. In 2015, vendors near the cave entrance reported that a foreign tourist had left his bicycle at the front of the cave before entering to meditate. He disappeared, and even after 7 days, there was no sign of his return. Relevant officials searched up to 800 meters inside but found no one. Their investigation revealed only the parked bicycle and some snacks, water, and fruits placed at the cave entrance. In that same year, a young man burdened with worries wanted to make merit by releasing fish. He saw a vendor about to kill a catfish, quickly intervened and purchased it immediately. After saving the fish, he intended to release it in the Chang River but experienced a strange feeling that led him to drive toward Chang Saen instead. During his journey, an image appeared in his mind: a large cave near the Myanmar border. He felt the place was familiar and eventually realized it was Tam Luang, which he had visited before. By then it was evening. Although he didn't want to go at such a time, something seemed to pull him there. During his journey, it was as if a voice told him to bring 5 chicken eggs along with incense and candles. By the time he arrived, it was 6 p.m. and almost all shops were closed. Fortunately, one shop remained open, allowing him to buy the eggs, incense, and candles as needed. The shop owner's expression suggested he knew something, so he folded paper into a krathong, floating basket, and provided flowers. The man accepted these with surprise. When he reached the cave entrance, he felt the silent, desolate atmosphere. He was afraid, but something told him to enter the cave. Once inside, he lit incense, expressing the many troubles weighing on his heart, and said, "I wish to ask the sacred entities to help me gain wisdom to solve my various problems." After speaking, he suddenly felt compelled to walk deeper into the cave, which was very dark, with only the tiny light from his mobile phone. He continued walking as the breathable air gradually diminished, so he stopped and raised his hand. Soon a wind blew from the cave cavity and something appeared. That thing slithered on the ground, and a line of light passed in front of his phone. He was astonished by what he saw. Afterward, he safely walked out of the cave and returned home. To this day, he still doesn't know what he saw that day. Doi Nang Non is the site of the Doi Tung Pagoda, an important religious monument in this region, and also the residence of the Princess Mother, beloved by all Thai people. The highest point of the Doi Nang Non mountain range is Pha Chang Muk, which rises approximately 1,520 meters above sea level. The general landscape of Doi Nang Non consists of limestone mountains with several caves. This place has many legends, one of which concerns Doi Nang Non, or the Lady of the Sleeping Mountain. It tells of a beautiful princess from Chaung Rung in Sipsong Pana who fell in love with a stable boy in the palace. Naturally, her family disapproved, so the couple fled until they reached the plains near the Mekong River. Upon arriving, they felt they couldn't continue because the princess had been pregnant for several months, so they decided to rest in that area. The young man went out to find food for his beloved princess but never returned. The princess waited for her lover until she learned that while he was seeking food, he encountered soldiers sent by her royal father who had tracked them down, and he was killed. Upon learning this, the princess was devastated and used her hairpin to stab herself, causing blood to flow across the ground, becoming what is now the Smiy River. Her body stretched from south to north as she lay dying became Doi Nang Non, Sleeping Lady Mountain, while her pregnant belly became Doi Tung. Viewed from a distance around Maichan district, one can observe the elongated mountain resembling a pregnant woman lying flat, called Doi Nang Non. The head part is called Doi Zhong or Doi Jit Zhong, representing the son of Pu Chao Lao Jok who waited for his father. The next mountain is called Doi Yathao, which was the wife of Pu Chao Lao Jok. Another mountain is Doi Din Dang, better known as Doi Tung. It is believed that these three mountains were the original dwelling places of Lao Chakraj, the founder of the Praya Mangrai dynasty, before moving to establish Hiran Nakhon Ngoen Yang city. Doi Din Dang houses the Doi Tung Pagoda, considered the first principal relic in the northern region. The second legend concerns the love story of a princess from Bagan who led an army in search of the prince she loved. She fought battles everywhere, causing many deaths and continually expanding her territory until she finally reached Wiangsi Thong. There she found the prince she had been seeking for so long, but he had fled with another beautiful woman from that city. This caused the princess such heartbreak that she died of grief. Before dying, she wished for her body to transform into a mountain range that villagers now call Doi Nang Non. Her flowing tears became Ku Nam Nang Non, and her followers transformed into the various ethnic groups living on this mountain. Another legend relates to Phra that Chom Na. The story tells of Garuda who kidnapped the daughter of the Naga king and hid her in this mountain range. The Naga king, searching for his daughter, found her lying with Garuda in the headwaters area called Kun Nam Nang Non. The Naga king requested the return of his daughter, and Garuda agreed to exchange her for gold. Today, the water source where the Naga brought gold from the underworld to exchange for his daughter is called Nong Ta Nak. The area where the Naga delivered gold to Garuda is called Nong La Ka. The gold was then stored in Tam Sai Kam, or the Golden Cave. Before departing, the Naga king built Phra that Chom Nak. A chilling touch, the village Krasu. What's happening these days? Why are so many people coming in and out of the village? The young female doctor asked the elderly woman after completing her physical examination. The old woman hesitated slightly before gesturing for the doctor to come closer and listen. The secretive manner of her regular patient aroused Darren's curiosity. She leaned her face down to listen as the elderly woman glanced around before whispering softly as if afraid someone might overhear. I heard the village headman say a Krasu has been out hunting for scents for several nights now. The villagers are terrified. That Jom fellow who lives at the edge of the village has come down with a terrible fever. Krasu. Upon hearing that word, Darren nearly burst out laughing. Being a city girl since birth, she had never believed in ghosts or spirits, not even slightly. Combined with her profession as a doctor that always prioritized scientific reasoning, the old woman's tale was nothing more than fantasy to her. The elderly woman noticed the disbelief on the young doctor's face, furrowed her brow, and continued, "You may not believe it, but it's definitely real. I've lived for over 80 years and have seen it with my own eyes. Truly hideous and frightening." Darren smiled but didn't reply. After instructing the woman to take her medicine with every meal, she helped her to relatives waiting outside the examination room. Since Darren was fulfilling her rural service obligation in this remote area and had been asked to assist at this small village's health station, she had to do almost everything herself without the help of nurses or other doctors. But Darren thought it was worth it because the number of patients was extremely small, and the villagers were quite friendly. It didn't take her long to become close with the people in the village. "Doctor," the young man who had come to pick up his grandmother said after thanking her for the treatment, "when you finish work these days, hurry home and lock your doors tight. Don't go out alone at night, especially to the edge of the village." His whispered voice was serious but tinged with fear, which greatly surprised Darren. "Yes, but why?" she asked. "Haven't you heard, Doctor? A Krasu ghost has been terrorizing the area. People have seen it several times at the waste treatment pond at the village edge. The headman is urgently trying to find it. Until then, you must be very careful," he said as the old woman added, "Help tell the doctor, child. I told her already, but she doesn't believe me. Sigh, kids these days." Darren scratched behind her ear while the grandson tried to persuade her. To her, rural ghosts were merely strategic myths used to control villagers and prevent them from misbehaving. If anyone started deviating from established norms, they would be labeled as a ghost. It wasn't real, but not wanting to make others uncomfortable, she agreed with them both. Besides, she wasn't planning to go out at night anyway. This village was near the forest edge. While she didn't believe in ghosts, wild animals did exist. After checking everything was in order, the young doctor headed back to the medium-sized wooden house she shared with a female teacher. The path that was usually lively was unusually quiet today, making the village seem abandoned. Only light filtered through tightly closed windows and doors with water placed in the gaps between them. She assumed this was due to the Krasu rumors, recalling that a method to protect against Krasu was using water in openings, as the ghost feared its delicate entrails might get caught. Though she didn't believe this, Darren had studied some local folklore before being stationed in this remote village, following her senior's advice that since villagers believed in these things, one should go with the flow when possible. When she opened the door to the wooden house, she found the female teacher sitting amid scattered notebooks, checking assignments. The floor was so cluttered it was difficult to walk. Darren cleared her throat slightly, but when the other woman didn't respond, she sighed and helped stack the notebooks neatly to one side. The teacher jumped, startled, then nodded apologetically. "Oh, why is little Rin back so early today? I was engrossed in grading," she said. "The villagers rushed me home, Mew. By 6, everyone was already back inside," Darren replied. "The health station too?" Mew asked with surprise. When Darren nodded in confirmation, Mew folded her notebook and set it aside, then flopped down and stretched lazily. "Aren't you going to continue grading?" Darren asked. Mew grinned. "Not anymore. It's Friday, I still have 2 more days." Then she suddenly sat up as if remembering something. "Oh, tomorrow is Uncle Lute's birthday celebration. Will you go? If you're free, I mean." "I probably will if I'm available," Darren replied while selecting her nightwear. "Are you going? I heard it's going to be a big event." The teacher shook her head but said nothing more. Darren didn't want to pry, so she didn't ask for a reason. As she was about to enter the bathroom, Smiy abruptly spoke again. "Have you heard the news lately? About the Krasu the villagers are talking about?" Darren paused for a moment. "You believe it too?" "Half believe, half don't," the teacher answered, making Darren sigh. "Do you know what they do when they find a Krasu?" asked the doctor, then laughed when the teacher shook her head. "They kill it, of course," Smiy answered with a chuckle. "That extreme." Darren's face darkened as she considered the implications. If someone is falsely accused of being a Krasu, do people in the village actually die? Why would they do such a thing? They kill because a Krasu isn't a ghost possessing a body. It's a dark evil magic that has penetrated so deeply it's become one with the soul. So the only way to eliminate it is to eliminate the host completely, Smiy replied. The teacher's voice had changed, becoming drawn out, hoarse and raspy, like an old person choking. Darren quickly turned to look at her. The teacher's eyes had turned deep red, staring back with a wild, bloodthirsty gaze like that of a predator. It made the doctor's hair stand on end, her legs weakening until she slumped to the floor. What happened next defied every scientific principle Darren had ever known. Nauseating and revolting, she watched as the head of the teacher, her roommate of several months, detached from her neck. The head didn't fall to the floor as it should have, but slowly floated upward, trailing internal organs behind it. A fresh, pulsating heart hung suspended in midair, nearly causing the doctor to vomit her dinner onto the floor. Her eyes now blurred with tears as she tried to scramble away. "Last night the witch doctors the head man brought almost caught me. Lucky I escaped, though badly injured. Don't believe me? See for yourself." Smiy, or the evil spirit within her, shrieked with perverse joy. Her lungs expanded and contracted with each cry. Darren stared at the scene before her, frozen in horror. Being a doctor allowed her to see that the teacher's internal organs were significantly damaged, with severed blood vessels and tears in the heart and other parts. An ordinary human would have died already. The trembling woman reached for a pen that had fallen to the floor, intending to use it as a weapon. The floating head with its trailing entrails moved closer. "You know what? A Krasu cannot die unless..." But before the evil spirit could finish, its voice was cut off by Darren's piercing scream. She repeatedly stabbed at the evil entity with the pen. Perhaps because it was already severely injured, when attacked again it couldn't escape. She stabbed again and again until the other side went still. "It's over. Everything's over. I can't believe Teacher Smiy was a Krasu," the village headman said in shock when he saw the teacher's corpse. The head separated from the body with entrails exposed, the body contorted and deformed. Even the men in the village had to look away. Darren remained silent, her hands still trembling. The nearby villagers rushed to comfort the young doctor, offering her temporary accommodation until the witch doctors could complete the cleansing ritual to remove the defilement. The new home the villagers found for her was a small, old Thai-style house, still sturdy with gaps for breezes to flow through. Yet Darren felt feverishly hot, as if something inside her body was trying to burst out. You so hungry," the young woman tossed and turned restlessly. The gamey odor of what must have been a hunter's prey wafted through the air. Strangely, she found it inexplicably appetizing. Hugh. She wasn't aware that her head was detaching from her neck, dragging all her internal organs with it before floating out the window, heading toward the source of the smell. During this, from the corner of her eye, she glimpsed her own headless body lying there. Yet she felt nothing at all, as if some primal instinct had taken control of her thoughts and actions. Hugh, Hugh, Hugh. Mew's final words floated into her mind. You know what? A Krasu cannot die unless it passes on the curse first, before being washed away by an overwhelming desire for something foul and powerful. A chilling touch the Takian wood ghost. Mother, little Nee called sweetly in her childlike voice. Today was Nee's 7th birthday, so her mother took her to the market at the edge of the village to choose a birthday present. On their way to the market, they had to pass an old abandoned house. Nee had been curious about it for a long time. Taking the opportunity, she asked her mother, I've noticed no one has lived in this house for a long time. Where did they go? Mother Pling looked startled before hurriedly pulling Nee's hand to walk past the house quickly, as if afraid someone inside might hear them talking about it. After they had walked a considerable distance from the house, Mother Pling slowed her pace. Nee, half walking and half running to keep up, was breathing heavily. Seeing her daughter's confused expression, Mother Pling felt sorry for her and began explaining. This house has been abandoned since I was a child. Back then it was in much better condition. But after nearly 30 years it has gradually deteriorated. Parts of the roof have collapsed onto the floor, revealing several large gaps. Currently the house is no longer suitable for habitation. Grandmother Noi, Mother Pling's mother, had told her that when the grandmother was in her 30s, a small family of 3 lived in this house. Father Mother Nuan, and Molly, their daughter, who was about 16 years old. When Uncle Am and Aunt Nuan first married, Uncle Am's mother gave them 1 ray of land. They built a house on this plot, a single-story Thai-style house with high stilts. The house and pillars were made of hardwood, with windows and doors that opened wide to catch the breeze, keeping the house cool. It was considered quite a nice house. A few years after Uncle Am and Aunt Nuan married, Aunt Nuan gave birth to Molly, adding a new member to the household. Uncle Am's family lived happily, although they rarely socialized, with most of the villagers living nearby. The reason villagers didn't often visit this family was because once when Ta Som visited Uncle Am's house, he noticed one of the house pillars oozing oil until it was soaking wet. Additionally, a red cloth was tied around the pillar with a small altar containing betel nut, cigarettes, and both savory and sweet foods. When Uncle Am saw Ta Som's interest in the pillar, he explained that it was made of golden Takian wood. Because he noticed oil flowing from it, he thought it might be inhabited by the Takian tree spirit, so he had set up offerings to please the spirit and protect the house. So far, he hadn't experienced anything strange or seen the spirit manifest. After hearing this, Ta Som smiled weakly, seeming half convinced. Soon, rumors spread throughout the village that Uncle Am's house harbored the Takian tree spirit. The story was embellished until it became frightening, making people reluctant to approach Uncle Am's house. However, villagers didn't dislike the family, as Uncle Am and Aunt Nuan never caused any trouble or disturbance. Both Uncle Am and Aunt Nuan worked hard to raise Molly until she grew into a young woman. After Molly finished high school, she worked at a canned fruit factory not far from the village. Molly's appearance wasn't particularly striking. Some might even consider her plain or ugly. But her charm lay in her diligence, hard work, and frugality. For this reason, Lek, a young man at the canned fruit factory, began to take an interest in her. Lek approached Molly and got to know her until they eventually started dating, much to the surprise and curiosity of others at the factory who couldn't imagine them as a couple. Molly was considered unattractive, while Lek was well-built, fair-skinned, handsome, and sharp-featured, disappointing many female factory workers who hoped Molly and Lek would break up. Despite facing gossip suggesting Molly wasn't suitable for Lek, the couple continued their relationship. One night there was a festival at the village temple. Molly and Lek went together. Molly wore jeans and a red plaid shirt. As they entered the temple grounds, everyone turned to look at them. The festival lights illuminated Molly's face, making her appear strikingly beautiful that night. Festival goers couldn't help but stare at the couple, the handsome man and the suddenly beautiful woman. People who knew Molly commented that during the day she looked ordinary, but at night she somehow became beautiful. Some gossiped that Uncle Am must truly harbor the Takian tree spirit, and Molly must be possessed by it, causing her appearance to dramatically improve at night. But gossip couldn't shake the relationship between Molly and Lek. Eventually they married in a small ceremony attended by only a few close relatives. Afterward, Lek moved into Uncle Am's house, and both he and Molly continued working at the canned fruit factory. 5 years passed and Lek and Molly still had no children. Uncle Am and Aunt Nuan had been waiting to hold their grandchild but never got the chance, as they died in an accident before their wish could be fulfilled. On the day of the accident, Uncle Am was riding his motorcycle with Aunt Nuan sitting behind him. When they left the village and entered the main road, a 10-wheeler truck violently crashed into them, killing them instantly. The death of her parents caused Molly to fall into deep grief. She resigned from her job to stay at home. She became withdrawn, thin, and spent her days in a daze. Friends and relatives took turns comforting her, but nothing improved her condition. Lek was concerned and stayed by her side. Lek began noticing strange behaviors in Molly. She developed a taste for raw or barely cooked foods like raw larb or undercooked meat. She ate voraciously at each meal as if she'd been starving for a long time. Despite eating so much, her body grew thinner. Lek noticed other abnormalities as well. When bedtime came, Molly would insist on intimate relations with Lek every night. Some nights, even when Lek was exhausted from work, he had to comply. Her desires seemed to increase steadily, sometimes requiring them to be intimate 3 or 4 times a night. One night, Molly suddenly said, "I want to make you my husband." Lek found this strange. They were already husband and wife. Why would she say such a thing? One day on Lek's day off, he took the opportunity to thoroughly clean the house. He noticed that since Uncle Am had died, no one had maintained the offerings at the Takian wood pillar. The flowers that had been placed there were withered and unsightly. Lek disposed of them and wiped the pillar clean. That night, as Lek was getting ready for bed, Molly came to him crying and lamenting. "You don't love me or take care of me anymore, and now you're trying to destroy me," while beating her chest. Lek tried to comfort her, saying he still loved her the same, but Molly shouted back loudly, "Don't love that, Molly, I'm your wife too." Lek paused for a moment but thought Molly might be delirious since she also had a fever. After that day, Molly fell ill. Relatives from neighboring houses came to visit, but Molly glared at them and drove them away irritably, telling Lek she didn't want visitors and that she wasn't sick. Then rumors began that Molly was possessed by the Takian tree spirit, which wanted to claim Lek as its husband. Villagers talked more and more until Lek became uncomfortable and secretly consulted the village headman. Lek was advised to pretend he was taking Molly to see a doctor, then flee without taking anything with him to prevent the Takian spirit from knowing and trapping Molly. Lek, also suspicious about the Takian spirit possessing Molly, agreed to the plan. That night, after going to bed, Lek told Molly he would take her to see a doctor the next day because her condition seemed to be worsening. Molly replied that she was still strong, could walk around, and wasn't seriously ill. Lek insisted that even if nothing was wrong, she should see a doctor for tonics. Molly agreed but insisted they should go and return quickly. The following morning, Lek hurriedly prepared the motorcycle and had Molly ride behind him. Then they drove away from the house. Lek followed the plan by fleeing far from the house with Molly, not taking a single belonging. But out of attachment to the house, Lek turned back to look at the old house once more. Heaven help him. In the empty house, the figure of a beautiful woman stood at the doorway, staring at Lek. He accelerated quickly until they were out of sight and never returned to that house again. The house has remained abandoned until today. Mother Pling told Ni that villagers living nearby reported that shortly after Lek fled, the house often echoed with a woman's cries, lamenting and calling for her husband almost every night. The villagers became frightened and didn't dare approach the house again. After finishing the story, her mother took Ni to choose a birthday gift at the market. 15 years passed and Ni turned 22, having just graduated with a bachelor's degree from Bangkok. She took the opportunity to visit home. She got off the bus at the market and walked to her house. Along the way, Ni couldn't help but look through the fence at the abandoned house. She saw the dilapidated structure with only the house pillars still standing straight. The roof and walls had collapsed and disappeared entirely. But the area around the house looked clean, with the grass neatly trimmed as if someone regularly maintained the surroundings. Looking at the house pillars from a distance, Ni wondered if the pillars still oozed oil, as her mother had once told her. She walked through the fence to the ruins of the house and found that the golden Takian pillar was still standing straight. Although the oil that once flowed from it had dried up, traces remained visible. Ni thought that by now the Takian tree spirit must have moved on to another life. She turned back and walked away from the abandoned house. When Ni reached her home, she met her father, mother, and her 17-year-old brother. After dinner, they all sat talking on the veranda outside the house. Then Ni's brother remarked, "Sister Ni, studying in the capital has really changed you. Your appearance has altered considerably. You look more beautiful as the night deepens." Ni turned to look at her brother and smiled sweetly, casting a meaningful gaze at him with desire in her eyes.